Good morning, everyone. Let's take a moment to think about how we interact with the world around us. How many times have we silenced our needs to accommodate someone else's comfort? How often have we offered kindness while suppressing the voice inside telling us this isn't fair? Now, don't get me wrong, kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not a flaw. But when we're constantly bending over backward to please, to avoid conflict, or to earn approval, we're not being kind to ourselves. We're being soft in a way that drains us. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and self-care, yet it can feel incredibly difficult, especially for those of us who are naturally empathetic or driven to avoid conflict. We worry that by setting limits, we'll push people away or come across as unkind. But here's the truth: boundaries are not about keeping others out. They are about protecting what's sacred within you, your energy, your time, and your emotional well-being. When you don't set boundaries, you're giving others permission, often unintentionally, to overstep and to take more than you can give. Over time, this leads to burnout, resentment, and even feelings of invisibility, as though your needs and desires don't matter. But they do matter profoundly. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and when you overextend yourself, you end up depleting the very resources that make you who you are. A boundary doesn't have to be harsh or aggressive. It can be as simple as saying, I'm not available right now, or I'd love to help, but I can't take this on at the moment. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they are commitments to your own well-being. They communicate your limits clearly and respectfully while still leaving space for connection and understanding. Here's the beauty of boundaries: they don't only protect you, they also teach others how to engage with you in a way that is healthy and respectful. People often fear that setting boundaries will damage relationships, but the reality is quite the opposite. Boundaries create clarity. They remove the guesswork and the silent frustrations that can fester in the absence of clear communication. Think of boundaries as fences around a garden. They don't stop the sun from shining or the rain from nourishing the soil. They simply prevent the weeds from taking over. They ensure that the beauty within can thrive. Without those fences, even the most vibrant garden will become overrun. Remember, boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. They allow you to show up for others in a way that's sustainable and genuine, because you're not giving from a place of depletion. You're giving from a place of abundance, a place where your own needs have been honored first. So practice setting boundaries, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Start small and be consistent. Honor your own limits and trust that the people who truly care for you will not only respect your boundaries, but appreciate the clarity they bring. You're not closing the door on connection, you're opening it to authenticity and mutual respect. Self-respect is the foundation of a healthy, fulfilling life, and yet it's one of the first things we abandon when we're trying to please others, avoid conflict, or keep the peace. It's easy to get caught up in the demands and expectations of others, especially when we care deeply for those around us. We often find ourselves saying yes to things we don't want to do, agreeing to compromises that make us uncomfortable, or silencing our own needs to meet the needs of someone else. But the truth is, when we abandon our self-respect, we lose the very essence of who we are. We start to bend and contort ourselves into roles that are not authentic, and in doing so, we undermine our own worth. Over time, we may begin to feel resentful, invisible, or disconnected from ourselves, wondering why we're not living in alignment with our values or our truth. Prioritizing self-respect isn't about arrogance or selfishness. It's about understanding that you are worthy of the same level of care, attention, and consideration that you give to others. You don't have to be perfect to deserve respect, and you don't have to be everything to everyone to earn love or appreciation. What matters is recognizing your inherent worth and making choices that reflect that understanding. When you prioritize self-respect, you start to honor your needs, desires, and boundaries. You stop waiting for someone else to validate you or approve of your choices, because you know your own value. You learn to listen to your inner voice and trust that your feelings are valid, your experiences are real, and your needs matter. This doesn't mean you always have to put yourself first in every situation, of course. There will be times when you make sacrifices for the sake of others. But self-respect means that when you do make those sacrifices, you do so from a place of choice, not obligation. You don't give from a place of scarcity, hoping someone will fill the void, but from a place of abundance, knowing that you have enough to give without losing yourself in the process. Another aspect of prioritizing self-respect is learning to let go of people, situations, and habits that undermine your sense of worth. Whether it's toxic relationships, negative self-talk, or environments that drain your energy, letting go of what no longer serves you is an act of self-respect. It's about creating space for growth, joy, and peace. One of the most empowering things you can do is to become your own advocate. When you prioritize your self-respect, you speak up for yourself in a way that's confident, calm, and assertive. You learn to say no without guilt and to express your needs without fear of judgment. You stop apologizing for being yourself and start embracing the truth that your presence is enough just as you are. Prioritizing self-respect is an ongoing practice of commitment to showing up for yourself day after day. It means knowing that you deserve to be treated with kindness, honesty, and integrity. It means refusing to accept less than your worth, even if that means walking away from people or situations that don't honor you. As you begin to prioritize your self-respect, you will notice that everything shifts. The relationships you have will change because you will attract people who value and respect you in the same way you respect yourself. Your decisions will come from a place of confidence and clarity, and you'll begin to see that the more you value yourself, the more others will begin to value you too. Ultimately, self-respect is the foundation upon which every other aspect of your life is built. When you honor yourself, you create a life that reflects your worth, one that is filled with peace, authenticity, and meaningful connection. Kindness is a beautiful and essential trait that allows us to connect with others, show empathy, and offer support. It's what creates the bonds that make life meaningful, and it's the foundation of many positive relationships. But there is a fine line between kindness and people-pleasing, and if we aren't careful, our kindness can be used as a tool to meet the needs of others at the expense of our own well-being. People-pleasing is rooted in the need for external validation. It's when we go above and beyond to make sure everyone else is happy, even when it means sacrificing our own comfort, values, and desires. People-pleasing can feel like an automatic response, something we do out of habit or out of fear that saying no will result in rejection or conflict. We often confuse people-pleasing with kindness because they both involve doing something positive for others. But there is a critical difference. True kindness is freely given, while people-pleasing is motivated by a fear of disapproval and a need to be liked. When we engage in people-pleasing, we give without limits, constantly trying to prove our worth through actions rather than understanding that our worth is inherent. We may find ourselves saying yes to requests, even when we're exhausted, agreeing to things that don't align with our values, or constantly putting the needs of others before our own. While it can feel good in the moment to make someone else happy or to avoid confrontation, this pattern eventually leads to burnout, resentment, and frustration. And the problem with people-pleasing is that it's unsustainable. Eventually, we run out of emotional and physical energy to keep up with the demands we've placed on ourselves. And that's when we begin to feel drained. Worse, when we're constantly giving to others without asking for anything in return, we can feel unappreciated and invisible. The kindness we show becomes something that others come to expect from us, not something that's genuinely valued. In contrast, kindness is an expression of empathy and love without strings attached. True kindness doesn't require us to abandon our needs or self-worth. It comes from a place of abundance, not depletion. It is a choice to offer help, support, or compassion because we genuinely want to, not because we're afraid of being judged or rejected if we don't. Kindness is about being mindful of the other person's needs while still respecting our own. When we separate kindness from people-pleasing, we start to act in a way that is both loving to others and protective of ourselves. We understand that it's okay to say no, to set limits, and to prioritize our own mental and emotional health. We realize that we are not responsible for making everyone else happy, nor do we have to compromise our values in order to be liked or accepted. One of the key ways to separate kindness from people-pleasing is to learn how to say no, and to do so without guilt. Saying no isn't unkind. In fact, it's often the kindest thing you can do for both yourself and the other person. When you say no with confidence and without apologizing for it, you show that you value your time, your energy, and your needs. You teach others how to respect you, and you take back control over your own life. Another important aspect is becoming comfortable with setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the way we protect ourselves from being overextended, and they help us make sure that our kindness doesn't come at the cost of our own happiness. It's about recognizing that you can give from a place of strength, not from a place of depletion. When you're able to give with limits, your kindness becomes more meaningful and sustainable. When we separate kindness from people-pleasing, we also stop seeking external validation to feel good about ourselves. We realize that our worth is not dependent on how much we give to others or how much they appreciate us. Our worth is inherent. We don't need to prove our value through our actions. We already matter. This is when kindness becomes a powerful and genuine expression of who we are, not a mechanism to secure approval. One of the most liberating realizations is that when we stop people-pleasing and start acting with true kindness, we attract the right people into our lives. We stop surrounding ourselves with people who take advantage of our willingness to always say yes, and start building relationships with those who respect us for who we are, not just what we do for them. When we set boundaries and separate kindness from people-pleasing, we make space for relationships that are authentic, balanced, and built on mutual respect. Kindness is an expression of our authentic selves, freely given because we care. People-pleasing, on the other hand, is driven by the fear of rejection and the need for external approval. The key is to recognize the difference and start practicing kindness in a way that honors both ourselves and others. True kindness is empowering. It strengthens us, nurtures our relationships, and allows us to give without losing ourselves in the process. When we separate the two, we unlock the power of kindness without the cost of losing who we are. Overextending ourselves is something we all do, at least from time to time. It's easy to fall into the trap of saying yes to every request, taking on every responsibility, and stretching ourselves thinner than we can handle. Whether it's because we want to be helpful, we fear disappointing others, or we struggle to say no, overextending becomes a familiar pattern that can feel impossible to break. But it's crucial to recognize that every time we overextend, there is a cost, a price that we ultimately pay with our health, our happiness, and our sense of self. At first, overextending may feel like you're being productive, efficient, or even virtuous. It might seem like the right thing to do, especially when we're caught up in the demands of work, family, or social obligations. Saying yes feels good in the moment because we want to be the person who helps, the one who is reliable, the person everyone can count on. But eventually, the weight of these commitments begins to take its toll. And the consequences of overextending ourselves are rarely immediate or obvious. They build over time, quietly eroding our energy, our mental clarity, and our emotional well-being. The first and most obvious cost of overextending is emotional exhaustion. When we're constantly juggling multiple tasks, trying to meet everyone's needs, and putting out fires, we don't have time to rest or recharge. This leads to a state of emotional depletion where we feel like we're running on empty. We stop feeling connected to the things that once brought us joy, and everything starts to feel like a chore. Our emotions become numb or erratic, and we start to lose sight of our own needs, desires, and dreams. We become so focused on fulfilling other people's expectations that we forget to nurture our own souls. Overextending also comes at a mental cost, constantly thinking about the endless tasks we have to complete, the people we need to please, and the demands on our time puts us in a state of chronic stress. Our minds become clouded, overwhelmed, and unable to focus on the present moment. We may experience difficulty concentrating, forgetfulness, or a sense of constant mental fatigue. When we overextend, we don't have the mental space to think clearly or strategically about what truly matters. We're simply reacting to one demand after another, rather than responding thoughtfully from a place of clarity. Beyond that, there's the physical cost. Overextending doesn't just deplete us emotionally and mentally, it can take a serious toll on our physical health as well. Our bodies weren't designed to run on high stress for long periods of time without rest. When we overextend, we're more likely to neglect our own well-being. We skip meals, lose sleep, and forget to take care of ourselves in ways that nourish us physically. This leads to burnout, chronic fatigue, headaches, weakened immune systems, and other health issues that could have been avoided if we had listened to our bodies and set clearer boundaries. The stress we carry impacts our health on a cellular level, which in turn makes it harder to keep up with our obligations and responsibilities. The cost of overextending also affects our relationships. When we are constantly stretched too thin, we have little time or energy left for the people who matter most to us. We're always busy, always running from one obligation to the next, and we end up neglecting the connections that feed our spirit. Our loved ones, whether they're family members, friends, or partners, begin to feel like an afterthought. They might understand at first, but over time, they begin to feel like we're not truly present. The cost of overextending ourselves is the erosion of intimacy and connection. We may find that we're surrounded by people, but we're emotionally distant, unable to give the kind of quality time and attention that strengthens our relationships. Furthermore, overextending ourselves can diminish our sense of self. When we're constantly focused on fulfilling everyone else's expectations, we lose touch with who we truly are and what we actually want. We begin to act out of obligation instead of passion, responding to the needs of others rather than our own desires. This creates a disconnect between our actions and our true selves. We become so entangled in our responsibilities that we lose sight of the things that once gave us joy or meaning. Over time, we may feel lost or disconnected from our authentic self, wondering how we ended up in this position of constant sacrifice. There's also the cost of resentment. Overextending, especially when we do it out of guilt or fear of letting others down, can breed feelings of resentment. The more we say yes to everyone else, the more we begin to feel like we're being taken advantage of. We may resent others for asking too much or for not appreciating the effort we put in, but ultimately the person we're most likely to resent is ourselves for not having the courage to say no, for not setting clear boundaries, and for not prioritizing our own needs. Resentment can poison our relationships and our sense of fulfillment, leaving us feeling bitter and trapped. Lack of fulfillment is another significant cost of overextending. When we're too busy trying to meet everyone else's needs, we lose the chance to pursue our own dreams and passions. We might have a general sense of being busy, but we lack a sense of purpose or fulfillment because we're not focusing on the things that matter most to us. Our actions may become automatic, driven by external expectations rather than internal desires. This can leave us feeling unaccomplished, as though we're simply going through the motions of life rather than actively creating a life that is aligned with our values. Overextending also has the subtle yet powerful cost of lost opportunities. When we say yes to everything, we spread ourselves too thin, leaving little room for new experiences, growth, or pursuing goals that align with our values. Opportunities may come our way, but we're too overburdened to seize them. We might miss out on career advancement, personal growth, or meaningful experiences because we're too wrapped up in obligations that don't truly serve us. Recognizing the cost of overextending is the first step in breaking the cycle. We need to understand that while it's important to be there for others and to be reliable, it's equally important to take care of ourselves. Overextending ourselves doesn't make us better people or more valuable. It simply depletes our ability to show up fully in our own lives, and it compromises the very things that make life worth living: our health, our relationships, and our sense of self. The key to ending overextension is learning to set boundaries, prioritize self-care, and give ourselves permission to say no when we need to. It's about understanding that we are not responsible for carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. We don't have to do it all. And when we recognize the cost of overextending, we can start making more intentional choices that honor both our commitments to others and our commitment to ourselves. There's a word that holds immense power, yet we often resist using it. It's simple, concise, and can change the trajectory of our lives, yet it's one we are sometimes reluctant to speak. That word is no. For many of us, saying no feels like an admission of weakness or selfishness. It feels like we're disappointing someone, letting them down, or causing friction in a relationship. There's often a deep-rooted fear that if we say no, we'll be seen as unkind, unhelpful, or unworthy. This is particularly true in a world that constantly demands more from us: more work, more attention, more support, more time. But the truth is, embracing the power of no is one of the most transformative and liberating actions we can take. When we say no with confidence and clarity, we are not rejecting the person or the opportunity. We are rejecting the idea that we must overextend ourselves, abandon our needs, or give up our peace of mind in order to please others. No is not a word of refusal or limitation. It is a word of empowerment, one that protects our boundaries and affirms our priorities. By embracing the power of no, we begin to reclaim control over our lives, our time, and our energy. Time is the one resource we can never get back. Every day we are given a set number of hours, and how we choose to spend those hours defines the course of our lives. Yet so often we say yes to things out of obligation, guilt, or fear of disappointing others. We overcommit ourselves to work, social events, family obligations, and countless other responsibilities. As a result, we run ourselves ragged, sacrificing our time, energy, and well-being in the process. When we embrace the power of no, we are making a conscious decision to protect our time. By saying no to things that drain us, don't align with our values, or simply aren't important in the moment, we create space for what truly matters. We open up the possibility for self-care, relaxation, and pursuing the goals and dreams that fuel us. No allows us to prioritize our health, our passions, and our personal growth. Overcommitting ourselves doesn't just drain our time, it drains our energy. When we say yes to everything, we spread ourselves thin and begin to feel exhausted mentally and physically. We may even experience burnout as we constantly juggle too many responsibilities without ever fully recharging. Embracing no is an act of self-preservation. By setting boundaries and honoring our limits, we preserve our energy for the things that matter most. We stop running on empty and start operating from a place of vitality and strength. No is not an indication of weakness. It's a recognition that our energy is a finite resource and we need to use it wisely. By saying no, we conserve the energy necessary to show up as our best selves in the areas that matter. Healthy boundaries are essential for maintaining our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Boundaries define where we end and others begin. They are a form of self-respect, ensuring that we protect our space, our needs, and our values. When we say no, we are establishing a boundary that says, this is my limit and I am not willing to compromise it. It's a powerful act of self-respect, signaling to others that we honor our own needs as much as theirs. Saying no with clarity and confidence creates a clear distinction between what we are willing to do and what we are not, allowing us to maintain healthier, more balanced relationships. Without clear boundaries, we can find ourselves overwhelmed, overextended, and burnt out. But when we embrace the power of no, we communicate to others that our time, our energy, and our emotional resources are valuable. We teach people how to treat us and, in the process, create more fulfilling and respectful connections. One of the most common reasons we hesitate to say no is the fear of disappointing others. We want to be liked, we want to be helpful, and we want to avoid conflict. But in doing so, we end up compromising our own needs and well-being, which in the long run is more detrimental than simply saying no in the first place. The truth is, it's impossible to please everyone. No matter how hard we try, there will always be people who are disappointed with our decisions. And while it's natural to want to avoid hurting others, the cost of constantly trying to meet everyone's expectations is too great. By embracing no, we let go of the need for external validation and stop seeking approval from others. We realize that we are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. It's okay for someone to be disappointed, as long as we are staying true to our own needs and values. Saying no becomes a form of self-compassion. It's acknowledging that our happiness and peace of mind are worth protecting, and that we don't need to sacrifice ourselves in order to be loved or accepted. When we no longer fear disappointment, we free ourselves from the emotional burden of people pleasing and embrace a more authentic, fulfilling way of living. When we say yes to everything, we can lose sight of the people who truly matter in our lives. We become so preoccupied with fulfilling external obligations that we neglect our close relationships, which ultimately causes strain. Saying no is a way of prioritizing the relationships that are most meaningful to us. By setting clear boundaries and respecting our own needs, we create space for deeper, more authentic connections with those who matter most. We no longer have to stretch ourselves thin trying to maintain every friendship or meet every social obligation. Instead, we can invest our time and energy in the relationships that are mutually fulfilling and that support us in living our best lives. At the heart of embracing no is the opportunity to focus on what truly matters. We often say yes to things that seem urgent or pressing but don't actually align with our core values or long-term goals. We get caught up in the noise of life, running from one task to the next, without ever pausing to consider if these tasks are contributing to the life we want to create. Saying no helps us cut through the noise. It creates space for intentionality and focus. We become more discerning about where we spend our time and energy. We prioritize the things that align with our deepest values, goals, and passions. By embracing no, we free ourselves from distractions and start living with purpose. We realize that not every opportunity or request is worth our time. And we become empowered to say yes to the things that truly contribute to our growth, happiness, and fulfillment. In a world that constantly asks for more, it's easy to lose ourselves in the process of trying to meet others' needs. But when we say no, we send a powerful message to ourselves that we are worthy of respect, that our needs matter, and that we are not here to serve everyone else at the cost of our own well-being. By embracing the power of no, we reclaim our sense of self. We take control of our time, our energy, and our life. We stop being reactive and start being intentional. We recognize that we are not defined by how much we do for others, but by how true we stay to ourselves and our values. In conclusion, embracing the power of no is not about being negative or shutting people out. It's about being intentional, protective of our energy, and clear about our priorities. It's about understanding that every time we say yes to something, we are saying no to something else. And when we choose to say no to the things that drain us, that don't align with our values, or that don't serve our greater purpose,